Hi, this is Victor Devon, and you're listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. Special thanks to Dolores, Rob, Joseph, and Michelle for their continued support on the WEBurlesque Patreon. If you want to be just like them, you can go to patreon.com/WeBurlesque and give us some support. Thank you very, very much, and enjoy the show. Listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. It is May 19th, 2018. I am in central New Jersey with Esmerelda May.
Hello.
And I have known Esmerelda for just under 10 years. You came to one of the Wicked Fairs, which is a convention in New Jersey.
The first Alice in Wonderland show, yeah.
Wow. What a different time. What a different time. It's so funny because White Elephant started in conventions. Mm-hmm. And while we have almost none that we do the Brass Ring show in Connecticut, which is convention-like. It's really more of like a marketplace / concert series.
2 days, fair concert almost kind of thing.
But New Jersey cons were our starting point. And then you do conventions all over the Northeast, really. How far have you gone with Cosplay Burlesque?
I've gone to Boston, and I've gone down like way into like the DC area, so almost top to bottom. I mean, I haven't done Florida yet, but I will be going to Gen Con, but that's with D20.
Right.
So,
same idea though. Yeah.
That's going. It's in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Yeah. That works out.
The worst part is I already bought my flight for that, and I forgot. Tells you where my head's at.
Also, that's Anya producing it, right?
Correct,
Anya
yes.
Keister. So she booked that months ago. Mm-hmm. What are you bringing?
I'm probably looking towards Amethyst. I'm kind of like, I gave him like my top 3 and trying to figure out what's going to be best for that show. Mm-hmm. I know she's looking for a little bit more of a variety of things, kind of touching all different fandoms. But
right, because it's a general...
Right. It's a gaming con, so I think she just wants to do like a general like
nerd
touch base on things. Yeah. So, but probably that one.
So, what was your first? I mean, not your first cosplay. What was the first character you burlesqued as?
Bellatrix Lestrange. Actually.
Oh, I didn't know that was the first one.
I did it not at a con. I did it at a little bar. When I was first getting my feet wet. I mean, that's like my first ever cosplay I turned into a burlesque.
I have seen a photo of that. You post it every now and then as like a
flashback.
Yeah.
But if you really want to get technical, my first really nerdlesque act was actually my first act ever, which was my Clue number. Which,
Scarlet.
Yeah, which I started. That was the first act I came up with, and then it kind of evolved from there. But like my first real cosplay act would have been the Bellatrix one. It was a Halloween costume I made before I knew what cosplay was.
How many variations of the Bellatrix outfit have you gone through?
I think this is 4.
4? And it's still something you do relatively regularly.
Yeah. So. I'm much happier with the dress I have now. It's much closer to what it was. It was just like a skirt and a top at first.
Did you base it on Helen Bonham Carter, or did you base it on the books?
The first one was based more on the books, and then when there was more of a visual, I decided to go more on the movie route, just because it was a little easier for people to like follow along with.
Because you were doing it relatively soon after the movie came out to begin with.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. There's a. I always wonder. I talk to Holly Ween about this every now and then about one of the. Not issues, one of the things to consider when making a nerdlesque or a cosplay act or what have you is how close to the source material you want to get while still looking, showgirlish or still looking interesting.
Right.
Because you're not necessarily always trying to strip exactly as that character.
Right.
And when you're playing characters that are based in books and have movie adaptations, but people may not always agree with the movie adaptations... or something like Miss Scarlet, which you based that on the board game as opposed to the film.
Correct, yes.
And your version of the board game.
Right.
So when you're deciding on fandoms that you want to represent that don't have direct visuals, how do you decide that? Do you like sketch it out in your head? Do you say, well, I have this and I know I'm comfortable in this?
I think it's a little bit of column A, little column B. I mean, like, a perfect example is I did a Katniss act before the movies came out for Manga Next.
Okay.
Because it was a cosplay burlesque show, and Holly said she wanted book things. I think the movie was going to come out. Like, we started to see the previews for it, but
so it wasn't a Hunger Games show.
It wasn't a Hunger Games show, but she wanted something that had book or manga related material. Okay. So I asked her when I was putting the act together, like, can I do it from the movie or do you want? She said she wanted it from the book because of the con.
Sure.
So that one was more of, I took what your descriptions were and what I knew I could get out of within the time frame of my like 3-minute act, understanding there were certain things I was going to have to drop. Like, I think I had the backpack, but like I didn't have a whole lot of the details of it. And I mean, that was when I was first a baby burlesque performer, so there was just like a lot of thrift store modifications and stuff like that before I really got into... I still for cosplay, but I didn't like construct for burlesque yet. Right. But like most of the things I've been doing lately have had some kind of visual, and I tend to... Now that I've been doing it long enough and I know more of how I am as a performer, I tend to kind of take a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and kind of mesh it together.
You're still interpretive, because a lot of the characters that you represent when you're in a burlesque act are cartoon or anthropomorphized. Like, you have a Moana act as the crab.
Right.
And it's more that you are, I don't know, evocative of the character than a strict...
Right, I'm a very human version of the character itself.
So when you're constructing all of that, do you usually have a song in mind, or is it that you know, oh, this is a character that resonates with me, I want to represent it?
Most of the time it's usually a character that resonates with me first before I pick a song. There's very few times that the song comes first. I have had a few times where I'm like, ooh, I want to do this character, and immediately a song idea comes into my head. But with like the Tamatoa, the moment I saw Moana in theaters and the song Shiny went on, I was like, oh, look, it's me. And actually Triple J's sister was with us, and she's like, look, it's you. And I'm like, okay, that's it. This is going to be it. And that before the movie ended, I think I already started thinking of an act for it.
I wonder every once in a while if it's harder to listen, as burlesque performers, if it's harder to just listen to the radio or watch a movie or see things and that not occur to us. Like,
I have such a hard time now, like, especially with like going to so many shows and working so regularly. Like, even if it's not my act, but like,
I have great ideas for the people. Great ideas for the people.
Yeah, or even just like if you hear a song that you know someone else does. Yeah. Like, I think Nightmare came on my Spotify the other day, and I was like, oh, Victor. And like I saw you doing the act. Like, it's so hard to just listen to it after a while.
No, there are songs that I don't particularly care for or didn't at one time, and then when I have a visual with it to a performer or a performance that I like, that's just how it is. Yeah. And to that end, sometimes the opposite is also true. Yeah. It's the same thing we have, like, oh, that song reminds me of this person. Exactly. Like, it's just how it is. Now, you like a lot of gothic industrial rock and things like that. Yes. And that, I think, your burlesque style goes in a lot of different directions, but I guess you have a lot of the gothic industrial rock like Nightwish or...
Hailstorm.
Yes. I was like, there's another one that you do a lot. Which one is it? And then you also have like a very sort of... I don't want to say classic, because that classic by itself doesn't mean anything, but you have a lot of va-va-va-voom, dun, da, 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 like the stripper expectation, hip swivel. And that, I think, is unusual for a performer to both go in those directions. When you're developing a character for a burlesque act, how do you decide if you want to be the vamp or... I don't know, the harder edge.
In your face kind of thing.
Is that character based? Because you can also subvert it by playing more vampish when that character's a little harder too.
There's times I find them happy medium, I think, with that, but I think it's more just the character's personality. A lot of my characters tend to be more villainesque, so I'll go a little bit more harder with it. And then things like the Cheshire Cat, where it's a little bit more in the gray area.
Playful.
It's more playful. That's when I'll go the more like va-va-voom, typical showgirl. I kind of feel what the character would do, and then I put my own little spin on it. I used to be very more like, I'm doing this as the character, and then I just, as the years have gone and I've developed as a performer, I know myself still goes into it, but I enjoy it, and everybody else seems to enjoy it, so I'm going to keep sticking with it. I was telling Holly the other day, I'm like, I found my little pocket. It's not, like you're saying, it's not really classic, and it's not neo, because I do like the hard rock metal thing. I'm in a happy little pocket in the middle, and I'm just going to live there.
It is definitely aggressive. You are an aggressive performer in that you are very dominant on stage, and you take command. You take command. I don't mean aggressive in a negative way, but it is sort of. And I know that you've played like, so Bellatrix is a crazy witch.
Batshit crazy.
Yeah. But there still are moments where you embrace the insanity, as it were. But then you're also moments of like control, because there's parts where she can't just flop around. No. She also has to, like, she has an arc, and that arc includes stripping. Right. So when you're choreographing, I say this all the time with WEBurlesque, that you're sort of like writing fan fiction with your body. How do you know when you're done? Like, how do you know that this is the whole character in those 3.5 minutes? Like, how do you edit?
It depends on how invested I am in the character. The more invested I am in the character, I find it is harder to contain it, because you want to do so much.
Especially when they're like multiple movies or multiple storylines, multiple costumes.
The way I choreograph things now is more of I'm looking at it like, okay, there's someone in the audience here who has never seen this work, whether it be book, movie, cartoon, whatever. How can I express to that person who has no background, no source material, basically a general summary or like a Cliff's Notes version of what this character, who and what this character is, to maybe interest them in that fandom. And that's more what I do. So I'll try to take the bigger mannerisms that are immediately recognizable. Oh, hello, kitty cat.
Yes, those who may recall an earlier episode of WEBurlesque, I interviewed Triple J in the same house with Cherry Valentine, and we had cat visits, and this is the same cat visit. Hello.
But that's how more of I look at it. Now when it comes to shows with like Holly, where there are more, it's more nerds in the audience itself sometimes.
The context is given,
Yeah, I will do maybe a little bit more of the tidbits of the character because there's at least some understanding of who the character is. So then I'll do a little bit more to make the arc longer, basically. But I try to keep it, like I said, short, sweet, Cliff's Note version of what that character is. So basically, if you Wikipedia'd it, would you be able to figure it out?
Right.
And that's more of what I try to keep in mind. Again, if you're really invested in a character, it's very hard to get away with it, run away with it. But for, like, my Amethyst is a perfect example. I love Steven Universe. I am very emotionally invested into that show. The plus side with Amethyst is I picked a song that's not even 3 minutes long. I was forced to trim that as much as possible, because I'm like, I have to take off X amount of clothes in X amount of time.
Well, you still picked that song.
I did. I did it to myself, but like, it made me have to.
But you gave yourself that restriction.
I did, yes. Okay.
Was it because you thought Bad Reputation by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts was so perfect for for your intent of that character?
Yes.
Okay.
The moment I thought about that, it was like I couldn't think of anything else to replace it. It was in my head, and I'm like, no, this is the right song for this character. This is what I need to do.
I remember, speaking of Joan Jett, actually, 2 years ago when I was developing sort of an interpretive version of the Rocky Horror Show / Rocky Horror Picture Show for one of the White Elephant Halloween shows at Rock Bar. I had come to you, and I knew that even though you had a familiarity with the film and the characters, that me suggesting the character of Eddie wasn't going to sound like a compliment. And again, I wanted to make sure that when I was approaching you with it, it wasn't that I thought, oh, Meatloaf, obvious. Especially like 70s rockabilly Meatloaf, who is, I don't know, roughly 300 pounds, covered in ice dust.
Right.
He has a great moment in the film, because he sort of stops time, and everyone has to pay attention to him. But in the context of a show, I was like, okay, so I want this person to play this character. I want this person to play this character. And because you were there for it, like there was some casting changes along the way, because I was like, no, but I'm just not, I need things to go a different way.
Right.
And I get in my head a lot when it comes to source material that I'm also very close with. And Rocky is one of those things.
Right.
So when I said Eddie, and I knew that there was going to be resistance, I think I came with the song.
You did, yes.
I said, how about I Love Rock and Roll by Joan Jett? Because I thought that would at least be more... you'd be more receptive to it. And that I didn't want a literal translation.
Right.
We didn't have the movie playing behind it. We didn't have people looking directly. I wanted you to play the character.
Right.
So as a character that you were assigned, as opposed to someone that you had an affinity for, or that you're like, oh, this is a character that I really respond to. How did you approach being cast in a character that you wouldn't necessarily have been up for? Was it more like your community theater days?
Yeah, a little bit. I was like, all right, this is my role. What can I do with it? That's pretty. I think you pretty much nailed it on the head there. I looked at more like, hey, I auditioned for a play. Here's your script.
Right.
This is what you got, and I went with it. I actually really, really enjoyed doing it, and I think I actually pushed you after. I'm like, hey, I would totally do that again.
Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll get to that again. Yeah.
I ended up embracing it. So I think a lot of time it's that. Sometimes with certain theme shows we do with like cosplay, I get a character that I'm like, okay, I guess I'm this character. What can I do? It's more like you take what you got and you have to kind of roll with it like a script kind of thing. Like, okay, this is what I'm assigned. How can I make this the best it can possibly be?
Right.
And strangely enough, sometimes that's when even when you're making like a one-off, like when we used to do White Elephant theme shows, like I did not think I was going to do Cheshire Cat more than once. Yeah. And
now it's
one of my staples.
You do it like 3 times a year at least. Yeah,
exactly. So it's kind of taking it like that. I mean, I'm a professional, and sometimes you get the character you really want. Sometimes when you're an actor and you go to audition, you get the role you want. Sometimes you have to settle for the chorus line, and you got to make the best of it. Yeah. Is more what it was, and hopefully end up enjoying it a lot. So
it was funny because it wasn't the first time that it happened. We did in 2012 at another convention. We did a haunted hotel show, and this was very early in us working with you. And I had the idea that Holly was going to play the crazy rock star who somehow died in the haunted hotel, and that you were going to be the fan, basically, who was back after many years later to bring them back through some sort of ritual. And that didn't have an existing character. Like that wasn't a I'm playing this role from this movie or this TV show. When you are doing an act that doesn't have a cosplay reference or doesn't have a fandom reference, do you create your own? Like, do you create your own backstory for just the gown and glove, slow burn?
Sometimes, a lot of my more classic stuff, when it's just a straight kind of strip, it's either the song, I'm sitting there and I can see myself taking my clothes off to it, or the song means something to me. My Amaranth act actually has evolved over time. It started off as just a straight strip, but I really like the song and the idea of like coming into your own. It kind of has that like mythical, when you like really listen to the lyrics.
Well, it's Nightwish, so it's very grand. Yeah, it's very cinematic.
So it's like evolved into a Hades number from Greek mythology, a female interpretation of it, obviously, and then actually Tesla Tees, before she left for Egypt, was selling her Persephone crown And I did a show with her where I got booked my Amaranth act as Hades. And she just looked at me afterward and she's like, you need to take this. This is perfect for your act. It's going to work so well. So after that, it wasn't just a Hades number. It was a Hades loving and lusting for his wife, who is not always there, because in the Greek mythology, she's not there the whole time. And I think that added layer to it, and it added more depth to it, and it added depth to the character of Hades. So I kind of play with that.
How did you end up doing? So when you first did Amaranth, which I think is some sort of flower. I think an amaranth is a kind of flower.
It's tied into Greek mythology, though, too. The gods used to... It was related to the gods, which is where that idea started festering into my brain. And I was like, oh, I like this idea. I love Greek mythology. I've always been interested in it. And I was like, what god or goddess fits this? Yeah. And then it's just started going from there. And then I just started thinking and going back to, like, all the Greek mythology books I used to read in high school.
There was Invote?
Yes.
Did? Yeah. So Invote in Philadelphia, they did a Greek god, or Roman... Greek and Greco-Roman.
Yeah.
So then you developed. Did you modify the act for that show?
It was starting to go that way. Okay. That kind of just gave it that final push to get it to where it is that. Okay. So that's kind of where that from, and that was the show where I was with Tesla.
So obviously, as Hades, which is a iconic figure. But for different people has different vision. There's going to be a bunch of people that expect you to have like blue flames.
Yeah.
As in Hercules the movie. How do you decide when it's your character, your version of the character, that's who that character is? Like, how do you know that's what you look like? That's what you're wearing. That's how you're doing your face.
It's just a development.
Okay.
It's when I'm doing a lot, like when I figure out a song and I know I have to make a costume, I tend to put that song on loop as I'm working on the character, or like watch a movie reference or something to kind of get me in that mindset. Because I mean, when I went into the Hades thing, I was like, do I want to go full on Greek, like classic, what you expect them to wear, the robes, or do what I want? And I kind of didn't really want that. I wanted to be a little bit more of a loose interpretation. So as I was like working on it, it went. I mean, the original outfit was just like a half skirt and then like a corset, and I kind of liked that feel.
You had some sort of red
I had the actually amaranth flower. That's what the flower looked like. I made like a crown of thorns on it, and then it just started going, and then I just kind of like, I was like, no, I kind of want to make this like a classic looking outfit. And then I found this really cool like netting fabric, and I'm like, okay, that can kind of make it look like the robe. So that was a long process of it. A lot of my
that act is 4 years old?
Yeah. A lot of my non-nerdy acts tend to... I start with a simple base and then kind of go from there with it. And then there's other acts where I'm just lazy and just like to do the very simplest of simple things and call it a day. And sometimes it works that way and it just ends up staying that way. When you
do the group acts for Cosplay Burlesque, that sometimes has 3 to 4 or 5 people.
Sometimes 8.
Sometimes 8. Yes, you have a couple that are like the chocobos that I've seen that before, and I've seen that be like 10. Like that sometimes it depends on how many people are in that show.
Yes.
How responsible are you for the look of anybody else in those acts, depending on what they are?
I am the main choreographer for those. I've choreographed the Chocobo number, the Evolution number. I do try to keep in mind that certain cons equal certain stage sizes equal certain amount of performers. So I try to make the acts that you can do them as 3 people, 4 people, or you can do them as all 9. And with certain things, like the Chocobos, Holly had an idea. She saw that dress. She was like, this is it. I'm like, this is great. You know, she took the artistic direction and the look of them, which I think went great because she wanted something classic showgirl, but still very bird-like. So we had like feather wigs and feather skirts. The Evolution was more of my baby. So I was the one who said, this is how the costume's going to look, and then choreographed based on how the costume was going to look. So I guess it really depends on who's kind of steering that bus.
Are you choreographing these acts with performers in mind, or are you choreographing these acts and then have to fill those roles?
It depends. With stuff like the Chocobos, the Muggles, even like this year's anime next year, we're doing My Hero Academia, which is an anime, and it's like showgirl outfits. I made that more general. It's very classic in its choreography structure. We're doing a chair dance, but it's like a typical chair dance with like the lean backs and the kicks and the swivels, because we have such an range in cosplay burlesque, which I think is great. We have a lot of newbie characters who are hungry, ready to learn, ready to work. We have a lot more seasoned performers like myself, Holly Ween, Cherry Valentine. People have been doing it for a while. So I try to choreograph kind of in the middle levels. Yeah, exactly. So there's some parts, and I'm a big fan of cannons. I love choreographing. I've taught baton twirling, and I've had to do one song, and I've got girls who are 10 and girls who are 16, and so many different levels in between, and I've had to make it all work. So I like cannons and stuff like that, where 2 people are doing 2 different things, but it still visually looks pleasing. So that's more of what I keep in mind when I'm doing that. There are certain group acts we've done, like the YRP from Final Fantasy, which is the Yuna, Pain, and Riku act. Those we knew who was going to be who, so the choreography went exactly. So that was more okay. What are all of our strengths? How can we make this look amazing? But even that's evolved too, because then I have a little like sub choreography. So if we do it as a group with more people in the background, they're doing something different than we are, but they have something they can do too. So it can be because we did like as a finale show, and we wanted like everybody on the stage. So that's like simple, you know, like here's a 4/8 count. Learn it. Do it to the tune. Got it. Good. Go.
Did you grow up dancing?
I actually did dance. I think I started when I was 3. And I did it till I was about 12 or 13.
Like
and then
ballet or tap, or what was your...
I did ballet, and then I had to start doing pointe, and I hated every second of my life. I did tap, I did jazz, and I did lyrical.
What's lyrical?
It's not quite modern.
Okay.
But
it's more gesturing.
Yeah, it was... I hated the shoes. They were like not really shoes. They were just like little... It was stupid.
Okay.
But my parents finally came up to me when I was like 9, 10, like 10, 11, 12, something like that. And they were like, okay, we cannot afford martial arts and dance. Pick one. And at that point, I started to find I liked the martial arts more than the dance. I think pointe had a lot of factor into that. So I kind of steered away from it. But I still did like the baton twirling too. So I still had dance-like things going on in my life.
Do you think that it was Taekwondo that you do?
It was actually jiu-jitsu, a more Japanese martial art. It was like a mixed, but it was mostly Japanese.
Do you think that, since that is also very choreographed, but it's far more, I don't want to say stiff, but there's, it's less about how
graceful.
Yeah, I don't know. It's less wavy in my head.
You still want, with martial arts, a lot of people think it's more stiff. You still want to flow. Like the biggest thing we teach them is like you flow like water. Like you want one move to lead into the other. But it's much more grounded and less graceful.
It's strong. It's
more of a strength. And I don't know. There was just something about it that I took to it like a fish to water, and I was just like, no, this is where I need to be.
When did you start that?
I was 7.
7, okay.
And I still do it.
I know you do. You're an instructor as well.
It is my full-time job.
Do you feel that is a leading question, because I know the answer to this, but do you feel that your martial arts training informs your burlesque and how you move?
I think so.
Okay.
I've done the fighting, quote unquote things. It's definitely helped, but the like you're saying, with me being I know I'm a powerful presence on stage, and I feel like a lot of that has come from the martial arts itself.
You play a lot of intimidating characters too.
Yeah.
So I think that we translate that, but you come off as a strong presence on stage.
I think a lot of that has come just from the martial arts. I mean, I got thrown into martial arts because I used to hide behind my mom's skirts and didn't talk to anybody. I was shy. I was picked on. I cried about everything. The look you're giving me,
it's not that I don't believe you were shy.
The look I get a lot.
It's not that I don't believe that you were shy. It's that you have grown so much.
Ask Mama May, she will tell you.
Yeah. I mean, but to that end, like, I also, having known you for as much as I do, and we've shared hotel rooms, we've traveled together, we've been in long car rides together, we've been cranky in front of each other, we've dealt with people good and bad, we've
drank at house parties together.
Yeah, so knowing you as I do, I also. It's not that I'm surprised. It's not that I'm not surprised that you're. It's not that I really think you couldn't be shy, because I also see that response informing you in other ways. There is a reserve. And not a closed offness, but there is a sense of you that I sort of get as not to get too Oprah Winfrey here, but to get that I sort of sense is sort of you keep people at something of a distance, and then until you're ready to invite them in. I think that is a strength also as a burlesque performer, because you also you're inviting them in when you choose to bring them in. So
thank you. I will interpret that as a compliment, and I appreciate
it.
I
mean, it's just a trait. I see. It's not that I don't find you. I mean, it's something that some people would just say that they would write off as, oh, she's being a bitch, or oh, she's cold, or
doesn't help that I have massive RBF.
I mean,
what's wrong? Nothing.
I have resting sad face.
I'm just living.
Like, if my face when it rests, I don't have resting bitch face. I have resting sad face. Something is always wrong.
Clearly.
Yeah. Just
clearly. Yeah. No, I'm always mad at something.
My eyebrows naturally go down. My mouth automatically goes down.
I just look like I want to eat people.
I'm really glad that you're working more with other shows and other places to get that experience and to learn more about yourself, and also get to meet really cool people. What are some of the things about your transition from Strictly Cons to Strictly Cons and sometimes White Elephant to more or less an even split between White Elephant and Cons, and then going out to other shows? Like, how did you muster up the courage or figure out how to book? How did you present yourself?
Can I curse?
Yeah, of course.
It was fucking terrifying. I actually, my first shows were tiny little dive bars of shows that don't even happen anymore. Because I actually just was, a couple years ago, I think, I was like, I wonder, and they just don't exist anymore. But like, it was, I think it almost helped me because I did that, because I had my one performer I used to work with a lot, she started, and I came to one of her shows, and I was like, I'm gonna do that. That is amazing. Oh my God, I did this play in high school. I remember looking this up. Wait a minute, I can do this. I'm old enough now, because I did the play Gypsy in high school, which is how I learned about burlesque, and I lived for that.
You were who again, right?
I was Mazeppa.
Yeah. You had a trumpet.
I did. Yeah. And then I was like a background person. But anyway.
Yeah, because she's only in the last.
Exactly. So, that re-sparked the interest into it, because I was 15, 16, something. I don't know. I was young. And then, you forget.
To do Gypsy? Yeah, they probably cast you as a 15-year-old.
Something like that. I'm just saying, like, you forget to brush your teeth sometimes when you're that young. You're like, anyway. So it kind of re-sparked that, and then I shaking in my boots. I thought I was going to pee my pants. Went up to the person, was like, hi, I've never done this before. Can I go on your stage and try a thing? I had no training. I didn't go to like the New York School of Burlesque. I didn't even know about that. I went home. I looked up YouTube. I Googled things. I looked up different books. I went to the library because I'm that nerd. I found...
you had to at a certain point because, again, the resources that we have today, we didn't even have 6-7 years ago.
Exactly. And I'm creeping
burlesque is not, I say this all the time, it's not as popular or as readily accessible as something like drag or many other subculture theatric elements.
Right.
Burlesque is still, there's still something about it that keeps it from really breaking through that ceiling.
Right. And I just, now when you were talking, I just realized I just passed my 9-year anniversary. So, I did all the research, went out there, looked like we all do when we first start. You look back and then you're like, oh dear.
Oh, yeah, no.
I thought that was sexy. What was I thinking?
It's like looking at high school yearbooks.
Yeah, it's pretty painful.
Yeah.
And I did a couple of things like that, and then I had actually seen a cosplay burlesque show, and I was like, oh, I love cosplay. I'm really liking this thing. I can do this thing.
Let's do it together.
So I started, and then it took me, I think, 6 months to get the cojones to go and contact Holly and be like, hi. And then through that, she started working with Wet Elephant and everything, so I saw that. So that's when I started following her, and then I found you guys, and then I went to Wicked Fair.
Because Holly was in that Wonderland show.
Exactly. Yeah. So then I went to Wicked Fair, and I went to go see her, because I also wanted to, show her my face and kind of things, and then I met you guys, and I totally fangirled. And I know I fangirled. It's totally fine. I'm not ashamed to admit it.
That's all right. If you can fangirl me at my 2009, I'm not going to be mad.
I remember watching that show.
Because my 2009 was rough.
There was just something about the fact that there was more to it than just the stripping, because when I first did Clue, I had a little bit of a storyline because I didn't know what I was doing and I needed a character. Yeah. But everybody else I was watching was doing these gorgeous costumes, and I'm like, one day. But then I saw there's it's not just that. It's not just...
It's a lot of pieces.
That's what opened me up to there's so much interpretation to it. And there was just something about the storyline of it that I was like, it's like theater. I went to college for theater. I have a degree in theater. This is where... And you just... It's kind of weird, but it's you feel calling of okay, that's something I'm definitely interested in. So then I started reaching out to you. And then Holly gave me my shot, and then it was the same show that you guys did at Webster Hall at a steampunk event thing. And then that was another, you could not tell, but I was sweating buckets when I went up to you, and I was like, okay, so you saw what I can do. Do I have potential?
What do you think?
Do I have potential?
Yeah. And then we threw you in, we did Madam X.
Yeah.
A couple months later, and we had a cancellation, so I had to do 2 acts unexpectedly.
It's okay. Holly booked me for that show the day before because of cancellation. I came up with that act in one day.
Cancellations are some of the best things that happen to people. Yeah. Shirley MacLaine would never have made it on stage had she not been an understudy for somebody else and then gone on.
Exactly.
So
just constantly doing that, and then I did it for a couple years, got comfortable with you guys, and then finally felt okay enough in my performances to say, hey, I can do a thing, and I work with these, names in the business that people know. Can you give me a shot? Now I'm very hey, I'm awesome. You should have me in your show.
Now it's a lot of, back then it wasn't through social media.
No.
Maybe MySpace. Maybe you'd message someone through MySpace. But now almost, I just did a show where everything was over Facebook Messenger, which is not my favorite way of doing things, but it was done. That's how it was.
Now, yeah,
it was cast, it was confirmed, it was a group chat, which means it was somewhat unwieldy. But everything was through that. I still don't think I got an email. I'm still not sure I ever got an email.
I've done a couple shows like that too, and then you're trying to figure out where.
It's just and I know a lot of people who are like, "Oh, that sucks," and I'm like, it's a method.
Yep.
It's a method, and as long as I got the information that I needed, I don't really care.
I was about to say, as long as the information gets across, where, what, who, you're good.
And I can also understand it because there are some producers who, when the reason they do that is because it has, it confirms that you've read it.
Yes.
It's sneaky in that way, and some producers need to make sure that you're actually seeing it so that they can move forward. Now, you've not produced precisely. You've assistant directed, you've choreographed, you've managed, as it were. Is production something that you would ever consider?
Lately, it has been.
It's not for everybody.
No, I want to. It's one of those I want to do it. I think I would want to do something like a theme or something. Like I want to make it a little bit of a bigger production because I don't know if it's something I want to pursue. Yeah. But I definitely want to do it once because I've tried a lot. I've tried, I've, like you said, I've choreographed, I've managed, and I listened to like working with you so closely for so many years and working with Holly and just working like with other people and like, the same people over and over again. As much as you say I'm a little standoffish, I also like I observe a lot backstage and how people interact.
I didn't use
and
the
stuff,
term standoffish.
Well, you know what I meant.
I may have implied the term standoffish, but I never said them. Yeah.
But like I kind of take that and I try to like I want to try it because I feel like I could do it. Obviously, I don't think I could do it completely on my own. I think I might need help. At least me for the first time.
Even I don't do it really on my own.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I do everything. Everything goes through me, and I'm usually the last person. But I can't do it without a venue.
Right.
Without all those moving pieces, and with a cast. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. I mean, I want to try it once, and then kind of see after that. I'd be like, is it for me, or am I just more of the?
Yeah. I mean, I get a lot of fulfillment from producing. But I get a lot of fulfillment from being in other people's shows. There's something, and I didn't always know if I would. I remember when I started booking in New York, and around the same time, around 2008, 2009, and I did more shows that don't exist anymore, interestingly enough. And I was sort of saying to myself, like, oh, but am I such a control freak where that's going to be difficult? And there's part of me that's like, I can manifest my control freak in different ways. I can control myself and how I handle it, and also I can be a good influence on other performers and on other things backstage. I can facilitate. I like to consider myself very helpful. Like I'm the one who picks up the glasses,
right? Or
like backstage, or I make sure that I have pasty tape. Like I try to be as useful as possible because I want a good show.
I've kind of the same way. Like I'm always like, do you need anything? Does anybody need anything? I'm more than happy to do whatever's needed. I pick up things if it's, hey, can you get in for this one act because things are kind of crazy. Yeah. I will jump at it. Cause same thing. I just want to go up there. I want to put on the best show possible, and I want everybody to do the best they can. And if it means I'm helping someone get into their corset backstage or picking up their stuff or helping them with a prop that fell apart last minute, like whatever it means, or if it's a producer says go run this, go hit play, like I'll do it. I also have massive control freak issues, and I'm not ashamed to admit it.
So
I'm very, very organized, which is also why like the producing is like, I didn't feel comfortable enough in myself to say I want to produce. I wanted to work on myself as a performer, but now it's like, okay, no, I'm thinking this might be something I want to try, but I don't know how it would go, so I don't know if I want something I want to pursue, but I mean, if you ever need help with Wet Elephant.
I mean, you've facilitated before. I mean, even beyond kittening or something like that, you've helped. I surround myself by capable people, and it's important to me that everyone handles their own shit, but also is comfortable asking for help or is comfortable. Like, I like the idea. I mean, there's always a question of whether or not burlesque is a community or an industry or a job or just a dance style, and it's like, it's all of these things because we don't work in a vacuum. Right. Like, you can be a corporate burlesque performer who jumps out of a cake at corporate parties and calls it a day. That is a career that has existed for 100+ years.
Yes.
However, if you want to be in shows, if you want to go to multiple shows, if you want to book bar, club, theater shows, you kind of gotta be cool with other people. Like, I know it's not Juilliard, but it's the same thing. And that's why every once in a while where somebody who says like, oh, it's not Broadway, I'm like, no, it's better in a lot of ways.
I've met some, like you're saying, you have to get along with people, and I've met some amazing humans and built some friendships. I mean, half of my wedding party is burlesque performers at this point. And the people who I've brought into the community just from like them coming to see me, because I met them at through other avenues of my life, like it's just like solidified that those relationships. And I agree, you have to be comfortable with other people, you have to hustle, you have to realize like, hey, you might be backstage with someone you don't necessarily like as a person, but you gotta put on your professional face.
But it's your job.
Exactly, it's a job. I'm there, I'm being paid
as long as you feel safe.
Exactly.
If you do not feel safe, or if you feel that someone is, I don't know,
detrimental to your mental well-being or something.
I mean, if someone's gonna be, I mean, there are hard limits for everyone.
Absolutely.
There's inappropriate comments. There's racial comments. There's theft. There's there are a lot of deal breakers. I get it. That's not what I'm referring to.
No.
What I'm referring to is working together to put on a show.
Right.
And that's true of whether or not you're at summer camp, which, trust me, you're not going to like everyone at summer camp.
Nope.
It's the same thing at grammar school, theater club, or band, or it's all of it. It's all
high school plays.
It's all a theater. I mean, to that end, you have to be magnanimous and be kind, be considerate, but also take no shit, as it were. Like you have to sort of like stand up for yourself, because this job can also swallow you whole.
Yes, you definitely have to be able to speak up for yourself when you need to.
Because you also have an audience. You have a staff. You have venue staff, or the bouncer, or whoever. It's a lot of moving pieces. What is your general relationship with a con audience versus a bar audience? Do you allow yourself to be a little bit more accessible? Do you keep yourself a little bit more at bay?
In bar situations, if it's a place I've been to, like Rock Bar or like Parkside Lounge, venues I've performed at a lot, I tend to be a little bit more, I try to be more accessible. I try to like interact a little bit, even if it's just a quick comment to the patrons coming. I know there's been several times where I'm like in the second set of Rock Bar and I'll stand by someone I've never seen before and I'll just, say, hey, I'm so excited you guys are here. Thank you for coming to the show. I also think it's important for them to realize like, hey, the performers are also still humans.
Yeah. And
without the audience,
we're doing this at home.
There would be no show. You'd be doing this in your living room kind of thing. So I do try to like, again, I'm not going to be like, oh, hey, buddy, give you my life story, but a couple little quick, kind words, say, oh, you've never been here before, try this drink, or try this thing if it's a bar that, like, has food and stuff. So I'll do stuff like that. With cons, it's a little bit more separate, only because the shows are so massive in size for the most part. It's almost impossible to have that interaction. And we're usually like on an elevated stage, and there is a separation between the performers and the viewers.
Right.
But we still do have con staff and
I mean,
security,
you also do you have the merch table,
That's where I'll be more personable at things like that, or a panel. Like we have Q&As where it's like, okay, now you can kind of see like, no, like, you know, then I'll be like a little bit more like, what was the word you used?
Magnanimous?
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean...
Not
also,
a total bitch? Got it.
I mean, do people, when they go up to you, do they expect you to be like the characters that you're portraying? Or do they refer to you as those characters? Because you also have...
You're talking in a con sense.
I am talking in a con sense, yeah. Because in a bar sense, our job is also to create like this... Like, I'm Victor Devon, and I'm doing this act... And I want you to know that it's Victor Devon. Like, it's imperative that you don't forget that because I want to get the next work.
Exactly.
At a con, you're almost underplaying that you're Esmeralda May because you're Amethyst. You want to convey that you're Amethyst. How do you be both Amethyst and Esmeralda May for an audience?
Strangely enough, Amethyst is me, so that was not a good example. No, I'm kidding. Like, are you saying, like, if I'm, like, interacting with a fan, or if I'm on stage?
I guess more of a one-on-one with a fan, or
okay, because when I'm on stage, I think you've even said it, like, I still come through at this point. I never fully embrace the character, but I'm also okay with it.
You wear the character.
I wear the character, yes, and I'll do things like the character, but it is definitely still me. And I have recognizable enough tattoos that people mostly can figure out it's me most of the time. When it's with a fan... It's less of them thinking I'm the character, unless like, if I'm cosplaying a character at the booth, it's a little different, because then I don't know if the fan coming up to me is a fan of my cosplay or is a fan of the show. Lately, I haven't really been wearing stuff when I'm at the booth just because it's uncomfortable to sit in a cosplay for a couple hours when you're working a merch table, and it's more of the... People are intimidated by me, and I guess it's maybe because of my presence on stage, and a lot of congoers, like, we're their introduction into burlesque. They'll maybe do burlesque afterward, but they'll come to see us, like, we're the first introduction to anything like that. So it's a lot of the mentality of, oh my god, you're a goddess and you're not human and I'm not worthy, and that's what I love about the merch table and the panels, because it's almost like, no, I'm a total nerd. I am here because I'm a total nerd. Do you want proof? I've got ink on my body saying I like Pokemon basically for the rest of my life right now. And I think that kind of helps with that. So that people kind of, it helps, like, build that rapport so that they come to more shows and you do build the fan base. But when comes to, like, merch tables, it's more for the troupe than, like, the individual performer.
You have audience members who actually travel to each of the shows that you go to.
Correct, yes.
You have people who basically, I mean, you're not on tour in the same way that, like, a band is, but you have people who keep track of your schedules because they want to see that show.
Yes,
and they ask you what your themes are, and they find out. Yeah.
And then, like, they'll keep on a con, and if a con announces as guests, then they go to that con.
Right.
Which I think it's really cool. It kind of is like that I'm in a band kind of feel, because I feel like a little mini celebrity, which is awesome. Yeah. And I mean,
to be recognized by someone you don't know is really, really cool.
I think that's what all of us want at the end of the day.
Yeah. To say, hey, are you? Or I saw you last time out.
Oh, you did this act and I thought it was brilliant. Yeah. Like I think that's what we all at the end of the day want. I always say, burlesque performers, we like the attention. We do. It's why we do what we do. We do.
As long as it is
positive.
Yeah. As long as positive. I mean, really. Yeah.
You're so brave.
And I was like, oh yeah, I saw you when you fell at that last show.
You ate it. It was hilarious. Also, I love the "you're so brave" comments.
How do you feel about that as a entertainer of size? I guess. I mean,
you call me fat. I don't think of it as insult.
Since you play a lot of characters that are fictional. And are cartoons and are therefore unattainable.
Yes.
How do you get through all of that? How do you figure that out?
Like, in how I handle the situation?
I mean, I don't know. Have you had people who have said that you're not the right body type for the characters you play?
My Mad Moxie act had gotten a comment on YouTube that said I ate the character. And I responded with it, and I corrected the comment because it had so many grammatical errors. And I said, if you're going to insult me, please use the correct form of your. Yeah. I mean, I got bullied so much about my weight growing up that at this point, it doesn't affect me because I've been scarred from it to the point where I can't anymore. I think it would really only insult me if it's someone I knew at this point. If
Right.
someone on the internet wants to call me fat and say I look stupid and shouldn't be doing burlesque, then don't watch me. I don't. But it took me so long to get to that point.
Sure.
And there are still some times where it's like, oh, that sucks.
Yeah. There's no size that a woman can be where a man will not call them fat.
That's true too.
They're going to be assholes regardless of what the actual person is.
Or there's going to be something wrong.
And there's also going to be people who are, that's the worst thing they can think of to call you.
And on the other side too, there's going to be people who think, "Oh, they're too skinny."
Absolutely.
Because there's some people in our troupe. We've got every size, color, shape, everything. Alien to not like it's I mean, and I think that's what's so great about our shows, because there's something for everybody there. But there's always going to be those picky people, and especially when it comes to cons, they're even harsher, I think, than a normal burlesque show, because they're saying they're looking at the character before the performer. So if you're not doing it right, they might say what's
interesting, and I'm not playing devil's advocate because they can go fuck themselves. But what's interesting is those characters, when they're fictionalized, have not had an opportunity to reject them. Mm-hmm. So they've never heard that character not be attainable to them.
Yes.
So to see them with real people in whatever bodies that they have, they suddenly have the opportunity to not want to fuck that character, or that character not want to fuck them back, and they don't know how to handle it.
Yeah.
It's still their fault, and they're still assholes. But it's once I'm able to sort of figure that out, and I'm like, right, you think that everyone's supposed to want to fuck you, and you think that everyone's supposed to give a shit what you think.
Right.
You're wrong. You just haven't figured that out, and you may never. That's the sad thing. That's the frustrating thing. But it almost has nothing to do with ever you.
No, exactly. And I think that's also what helps with that, too, in handling those kind of situations. I mean, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and that's just the hard factor of life. Doesn't matter who you are, doesn't matter what you're doing. Right. Someone's not going to fucking
also,
like you.
You're portraying that character isn't necessarily a commentary on your fuckability or that character's fuckability.
Or how that person interprets that character. That's my interpretation of the character.
Would you say that, I mean, we've been talking a lot about Amethyst, partially because it's one of her more recent creations that's getting some work. You just did it at the Nerdlesque Festival.
Yes, it did.
In Coney Island.
It was great. I got to eat a hamburger on stage. I was like, oh, this is my new favorite thing. I get to eat.
But I would hazard a guess that act, with that character especially, she's not all that concerned with an audience being sexually interested. And I said this with Vanka at my last conversation, that burlesque is really interesting because it's like one of those things where it's a double edge, or it's like a triple edge, where we're like, we want you to embrace the fact that we feel really good about ourselves, and we want you to feel really good for us. But we're not quite sure if we want you to be turned on by us. We still aren't quite on a level of that. Right. We want you to appreciate us, but how much do we want you to appreciate us?
Right.
It's an interesting line of objectification. And since you're playing characters who have no agency because they're fictional, and they only have, like, how many characters do we hear, like, oh, that was written by this guy and he was really fucked up. So, like, Harley Quinn is a perfect example where she is hypersexualized. She is in a abusive relationship. She's not necessarily an after-school special for what can happen. Mm-hmm. But depending on who's writing for her, or who's playing her, or however she's going, it can be, it can read as, this is what you should want in your relationship, or this is what you should aspire to be. When you're burlesquing, and I know that I use that as a verb.
I love it.
When you're performing and you're developing what you want your character to be, you have the opportunity to take choices that the creators never had a chance to.
Right.
Or have no interest in. Like, I've seen Harley Quinn acts that have basically said, yeah, I don't really care what Deanie thought about it. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. Mm-hmm. Or how Suicide Squad handled it, or how this handled it.
I feel like when it comes to, like, nerdlesque or cosplay burlesque in particular kind of things, it's almost like our bodies are the fan fiction. Like you're saying, it's our interpretation of it. It's how we want to be read. It's I've seen acts that are not meant to be sexual, but to just tell a story of coming into your own. There's some that are meant to be turned into, you know, like yaoi, which is or yuri or whatever you want to interpret that as. And there's other people who are just, like you're saying, like my amethyst act is more just embracing the fact that, hey, I'm fat and guess what, I'm still hot.
Look at my hair.
Look at my hair. Look at my big hair. Watch me pick my nose. Watch me shake my belly. I'm so liberated by that act because I can do things that don't necessarily come off as attractive.
It gives you permission.
Yes.
Like that character, you can learn a lot from those characters, because then they don't just inspire you, now you're actually manifesting that on stage, which will then, you can't avoid it, will then inform your next act.
Yes. And then, but like, then there's other acts like my Morrigan, which is, she's a succubus character, so that is all that is one where I am trying to, I guess, be more seductive with it, so my movements and then...
But it's almost like it's almost in, like, you know you want this. Like, it's almost, it's actually,
well, that's just me.
As we wrap, because I know you have, as a busy burlesque performer, you have a gig tonight, as do I.
Speaking of ridiculous.
You're doing, this will air after the show, obviously, but you're playing Strong Bad tonight?
Yes, I am. In a homestarrunner.com burlesque show.
At D20.
It's going to be ridiculous. I have boxing gloves and a luchador mask. Playing with that Latina line. I'm playing that. I'm riding that Latin train.
When you see, I mean, obviously, I'm going to go out on a limb because I also know the answer to this, that you did not already have a Strong Bad act. When you see, D20 is one of those cool places where they're like, we're looking at, we want fresh too. They hire seasoned and talented performers who they trust to create things. Yeah. It's not just like slapping things together and hoping for the best. When you see a casting like that, like, how do you start? Like, because you didn't have this in mind.
I didn't. I jokingly, like, in my first actual cosplay burlesque show at a con, which was Intervention Con, where the host actually hosted as Strong Bad, jokingly was like, that'd be a really funny burlesque act, and then never thought about it again.
Well, we say that like 20 times a day.
Exactly. So when I saw the casting call, I think that popped into my head, and I was like...
And how many chances are you going to have a chance to do a homestar?
And that's kind of when it was one of those, the casting call went out, and I did the total,
and it is kind of perfect
pick me.
It is on brand.
I'm going
to say it's on brand. Do you keep the mask on the whole time?
We're gonna find out.
We'll learn together.
So funny enough, my Bane act, which is also another, I do the luchador Bane, like the comic book version, with the mask. The only reason it comes off is because after a while I cannot see because I fog up the eye.
I think it's reasonable. Like at a certain point, I mean, there are some, like, Holly is the queen of keeping a mask on the whole time.
God, stripper Jesus help her. I don't know how she does it. I'm like, I'm suffocating and I'm dying.
Yeah. Like she and Anikisha both have Zentai. Many Zentai suit acts. But there's your type of performance style, I would also say. It is more about, and here I am. I'm very big on the face. The person behind the mask.
I'm very big on the face anyway too. I think I choreographed a part where it can come off.
Just in case?
Just in case. Because I can't see very well out of it. It's also rhinestone to high heaven, so I know there's rhinestones right here, so I know it's going to like right under my eyes. Yeah. It's going to reflect right into my eyes, but we're going to see what happens. That's the other thing I'm gonna miss. I guess I'm a professional. I've used to choreograph everything, and now I choreograph moments, and then I trust
yourself.
I trust myself, and I feed off of what the audience gives me, and I read people like that. I like to go into the audience and interact with them a lot because I read off of how they're reacting to me. So
it's a balance, because if you know you're so choreographed for some of these cosplay group acts, and you want to be able to like stretch. It's getting as much as you can out of the opportunities that you're giving yourself.
So, exactly.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You've been listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. My guest today has been Esmerelda May. You can catch her with White Elephant Burlesque a whole lot. She will also be at the #WeBoylesque show at Bazaar Bushwick on the second Tuesday of June. Please check that out as well. Go to WeBurlesque.com for more information on this and any other show, and we will see you next time.
Hi, my name is Matt, aka Stormageddon, and I'm the host of Crash Chords Autographs, which is a bi-weekly podcast in which I interview entertainers all over New York and more, from musicians to magicians to comedians to burlesque performers and anything you can really think of. Anyone who's willing to talk, I've had them on my show. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and more. You can also follow us on our website, which is crashchords.com. And remember, music is life, and life is good.